Welcome to the green room of DisrupTV. We're going to talk to Tim Christophersen and, of course, Sanjib Sahoo. But before that, I'm here with my amazing co-host, Vala Afshar, producer L. And more importantly, this is our big episode talking about agents of change and how nature will reshape the future. So let's do quick introductions in reverse order of appearance. And quickly, Tim, tell us a little bit what you're talking about today and, of course, where you're coming in from.
Hi, I'm calling in from Denmark, from our family farm. I'm going to talk about my new book called Generation Restoration, about planetary scale nature restoration. Pleasure to be here.
Very cool. As we take that human aspect into the world of AI, Sanjib, where are you coming in from? What are we talking about?
I'm coming in from Irvine, California, our global headquarters of Ingram Micro, and we'll talk about AI, Ingram Micro, X Vantage, how we are becoming and a platform company. So excited to be in the show.
Very cool. And we're happy to have you back. You're one of our BT 150, one of our Supernova Award winners, and of course, a DisrupTV show Hall of Famer. All right, with that, we'll turn it back to L. And as everybody knows, L has a new last name. Congratulations. Publicly, we can tell everybody now. It's official.
Thank you, Ray. So. All right. 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us on DisrupTV. My name is Vala Afshar. I'm the Chief Evangelist at Salesforce and your co-host for the next hour. Please follow us on X at DisrupTV Show, and we'll do our best to answer your questions live. It's my pleasure to introduce my co-host, Ray Wang. He's the CEO, founder of Constellation Research. He's the best-selling author of Everybody Wants to Rule the World. He's on TV every day. I see him on Fox Business, Bloomberg, CNBC. He's one of the most influential futurists on X and RWA and G0. Welcome, Ray Wang, to DisrupTV.
Hey, thanks a lot. I'm happy to be here. Of course, I'm here with Vala Afshar. He's the Chief Digital Evangelist for Salesforce. He's also the author of multiple books, including Boundless, which I carry every day with me. And this is the new mindset for if you're thinking about unlimited business success, but there's also a new #1 seller coming up from Vala soon. So stay tuned for his new book. And it's listed, if everyone knows, it's autonomous. So check it out in the bookstores out there. And of course, people pay attention to every one of Vala's interesting, inspirational, insightful tweets. But when he's not hosting, keynoting, leading events at Salesforce, you can find him live here on DisrupTV and on TV outlets like Bloomberg and posting insightful analyses on ZDNet. But it's not about me. It's about our amazing guests. And who do we have to kick it off today?
We have a legend with us, Ray. Legend. Sanjib Sahoo, President, Global Platform Group at Ingram Micro. Sanjib is hailed as one of the most influential business minds in the world. He's recognized for his disruptive thinking and transformative approach to digital platform innovation and business growth. Sanjib is credited with transforming 3 long-standing performance-driven industries, including the B2B technology distribution ecosystem. An inclusive and insightful business visionary, Sanjib has been celebrated as a global technology icon and was dubbed DigiGoat by CIO News. In fact, the last couple of years, he was named among the top 5 disruptors in CRN's annual top 25 disruptors list. Sanjib was also presented with 2024 Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Award, which was featured as one of the Fortune's Unstoppables in 2023, alongside this other disruptor we know, Elon Musk. As president of Global Platform Group for Ingram. Sanjib leads the Fortune 100 companies worldwide platform strategy, which he invented and brought to market since 2021, which includes the game-changing adoption and continued advancement of Ingram Micro's AI-driven digital twin, X Vantage, and oversight of global platform technology, business, and marketing operations. I don't know how he has time to be on DisrupTV, but we're grateful for it. Welcome back, Sanjib, to DisrupTV.
Great company to have you. You guys are legends. I'm just humbled to be here and grateful that you guys are talking to me. So thank you for having me here.
Not at all. We're super excited to have you here, and we are the ones who should be humbled. Love having you here. We are on this progression, as you can tell, in AI. Classical AI, 2 + 2 = 400% of the time. Generative AI, 2 + 2 might equal 4, 95% of the time, with a little model drift, RAG, some other fun stuff. And now we're in the age of agentic AI, where 2 + 2 = 4, and we do something about it in decision automation. Let's take a gut check. Hype versus reality in the enterprise. Where do you see this, Sanjib?
I think it's an interesting question. I can tell you my observation, what is happening in the industry. Everybody's talking about AI, but you have to really ask how many of them are actually generating meaningful value, either revenue or a bottom line using AI. There's a difference between doing proof of concept and really making AI mainstream. So I think the technology has a lot of opportunity. There is a lot of progression that is made with AI, but it really boils down to a few things. Is your organization AI mature? Do you have your systems and data in a way that you can use AI? Do you actually have right business cases to work on it? A lot of us are working on AI and trying to find a business problem to solve. Wow, we did the next cool algorithm.
Yep.
Let me go and find the business problem. So it boils down to a few years ago, Ray and Vala came to the show and said, you start with the business problem, bring in that operational spirit to AI. So, and I can talk about a little bit about what we are doing at Ingram Micro, but my thought process, Ray, is there's a lot of talk and hype, but you have to really boil down to use case and value generation. When it actually shows up in your results meaningfully as a truly differentiator, that's what it means. That's what I will say where it is today. So little results versus a lot of POCs and hype, but the technology has a lot of potential. It's about using it the right way.
I want to level set the audience so they're listening carefully to Sanjib, because some of you may not be familiar with what he's been tasked to do. And this mission started 4 years ago with him when he was recruited to reinvent Ingram. Now, Ingram is a $50 billion behemoth. It has been in the distribution game for more than 45 years, servicing 1,500 vendors and over 160,000 customers, supporting millions of businesses and consumers around the world. So just give you a size of what a president's responsibility is at Ingram. So on average, Ingram product touches about 6 vendors. So it's a highly complex supply chain, and 90% of the world's population. So it's one of the most important companies on earth. But there's a lot of complexity and a lot of opportunities for efficiency when you're talking about 160,000 customers, 90% of the population. And this is a $5 trillion market, that addressable market that they play in. So when he's tasked to transform and reinvent, this is it has to be done mindfully and deliberately, just because of the sheer size of Ingram. Now, he joined in 2021, and his team decided to become a platform company. So imagine the complexity, the reach, the billions of dollars of revenue, and you come in and you want to reinvent a company that's been essentially doing the same level of innovation for 45 years. And before Sanjib started, and I remember him talking to Ray and I on our podcast, it was creation of this X Vantage, the name of the platform. And it was a digital experience. It's an ecosystem built from the ground up. And the tenants, and so for people listening, as we dig more into AI, he wanted to have the network, he wanted to have the talent and expertise, and he wanted to have the data. So he wasn't chasing shiny object syndrome. He wasn't chasing metaverse or AI or quantum or distributed ledgers. He was thinking about fundamentally the network power, the talent and expertise. And by the way, put your money where your mouth is. One of the first few things he did is he recruited the top talent from Amazon, from Meta, from Google. I was waiting for him to call me. That didn't happen.
Yeah.
He was recruiting the top data scientists, top AI from the top frontier companies. And right now he's playing with 40 years of data and 4 petabytes of data. 4 petabytes. That's a
Not too shabby, man. Not too shabby.
million gigabytes. So I just wanted to set the stage. This isn't just a president of a startup. This is president of one of the biggest companies, most influential companies on earth, giving us advice in technology. So my question: how do you drive real ROI from AI, and more specifically agentic AI, given this massive responsibility you have, essentially architecting X Vantage and reinvention of Ingram?
It's a great question, Vala, and I can share you my experience going through this transformation over the last 4 years. I think the first thing is we did not start with automating systems. We were not modernizing distribution. We wanted to build a B2B ecosystem in a platform business model. And I told you this before. The first question came to my mind that we have a massive ecosystem, right?
Yep.
But
you have the network.
If you look at the largest taxi company, do not own a single taxi. The largest content company do not own a single content. They build the technology first and then try to create the ecosystem. And my thought was, wow, we have the ecosystem. We connect the demand and supply, and we touch about 90% of the world's population. So how there has to be a better way to deal with the complexity in B2B. And that is where we started the concept of X Vantage, reimagining the B2B journey. So the idea is you break the journey into your vendor journey, your partner journey, employee journey, your supply chain, your pricing, order codes, right? Start with the journey and then figure out in each of the journey, how can we A, platformize it, and then B, start looking at data. So the first thing we did was, and I said before, brought in a data leader, and then instead of rationalizing ERPs, we actually created a real-time data mesh. And then on top of that, then this was a few years ago, my thought process was we start building the foundation of AI, because there are multiple forms of AI, but without data, there is no AI. So what happened, it was a dual approach where you start working on experience for our partners and build the platform. And in the back end, start using more and more data and the platform to make the data more intelligent, which means that there is an evolution of this phase. The first phase of the platform was really taking OpEx out and create system efficiencies, right, for the company. The second phase was, really figuring out how do we speed the go-to-market. Think of an example. That data that we created now goes to a real-time custom AI factory that we built, which was more real-time. So imagine a transaction happens in a country, it gets replicated on the data mesh, it adds to the models, we train the models and gives you new recommendations. And then this recommendation goes to our intelligent engines, which are headless, and then goes to the experience. So the same experience and recommendation a customer is getting on that. So these models that we have today, let me give an example. If you look at our Q2, our CEO said, in the script that we do something called as intelligent digital assistant, which I covered also in the investor presentation, which I did in July, which is we look at the data, we look at 50 attributes of this codes that is integrated with the data. Then we look at this demand, signals, and propensity. And now we are actually reaching out to our partners with the data from AI. We are becoming order makers from order taker. So you are becoming getting a proactive selling motion from a reactive selling. And that has driven hundreds and millions of dollars of revenue in Q2 and sequentially grown about 50%. So you are seeing the second phase of the platform journey using AI to actually speed go to market. Now, the third phase is you really reimagine your journeys, both customer, vendor, inside, to link the demand and supply to drive the leverage, which is the margin efficiencies, which means that now we understand how the demand is coming. Now, what you look at is, especially to a platform model, you have to look at cost to serve. You need to look at demand generation. look at organic growth. Now tie the pieces of the platform. Now, one of the work we did was we have about 400 AI and ML models that we have built on that data. What we are looking at is right now looking at the journey. So my point, Vala, is we are trying to look at, and I have a joke, I say, no OI, no AI. Means you really have to generate operating income from AI. So figure out how we actually drive value. It's just a mindset process to do that. But if you look at Ray, the agentic AI or AI, there are few key components. You need to get your systems in place, your data in place. You need to have your journeys in place and the knowledge. Otherwise, you can keep on automating and not drive value. Second is you need to have your culturally the mindset, the organization in place, focusing on the art of possible. And you always have to figure out what is a healthy combination of humans and AI, which we call it, aggressively digital and amazingly human. So that's what I will say, Vala. We are in this journey not to build another tool. Ingram Micro is a platform company, and it's a massive transformation. But every day we are living, not perfect, but we are getting there.
No, I remember 2 years ago when you launched X Vantage, you shared the building blocks, and it was about operating income. The building blocks you referenced was personalized unified experience. So you were thinking about the experience as your North Star, one-stop multi-tech, solutions, insight-driven demand, which you just mentioned. Again, you've adopted almost what I call a military operating system: sense, understand, decide, and act in real time. And that's your IDA, your intelligent hub and factory that's creating that real-time custom pricing and instant quotes and orders. So those were your 5 building blocks. And you fast forward 2 years. What's stunning to me, because it's such a large company, is if you talk about the numbers today, you got 21 countries that are on the X Vantage platform and growing, 30 plus patents. So you're actually inventing new capabilities that are first capabilities worldwide. We mentioned 400 AI and ML models, 4 petabytes of data. And you've got 32 million lines of code that's running concurrently, and that number continues to grow. And as I recall your financial update in July, during the first quarter of 2025, the platform registered 12 million searches for hardware, software, cloud services, and customer solutions. You're massively increasing adoption, but you didn't start with proof of concept in the lab, let's play with something and raise our hands and declare victory. You had building blocks that talked about operating income guiding your innovation roadmap, which, again, folks watching this, look, if a company size of Ingram within 2 to 3 years can reinvent themselves and become a platform company as they are today, there's no excuse for anybody watching, because they're one of the biggest companies on earth.
Well, I think the other piece, Vala, is the fact that the stuff he showed us, he actually built. I mean, that rarely happens.
You don't become president.
That rarely happens, and that's the impressive thing, because we looked at the roadmap, we're like, oh, that's pretty ambitious. We'll see if he builds maybe a third of it, and he built the whole thing. I mean,
this is why it was network, talent, data. Without that, your company is only as good as the company you keep.
But Sanjib, the question I have for you is really around culture, right? And that's the big shift, right? If we're moving at machine scale with humans, we've got to actually figure out the culture aspect to make this work. And so as we're talking about where the world of agentic AI is happening, it's bigger on leadership and culture. There's an impact that we actually have to do. There's cycles that actually operate differently. Share with us a little bit about where you see that and how those changes are happening, because the team you have today and the team you have in the future and the team that you have 3 generations out, they're all going to look very different over time.
I think
please, as you answer, can you also reference how you deliberately try to remove silos? Because that's really the unnecessary friction that we need to overcome in order to reach our full potential.
So absolutely, these are great questions. So one of the things, Ray, when you come to a company, is the culture and the mindset is the biggest blockers, of a transformation, right? And I talked about it. Transformation is not a project. It doesn't have a stop sign. You have to change the DNA of the company to actually, be progressive. And I call it starts with the leader. And for me personally, the way I calibrate, it's not easy. I can tell you, not for the faint of the heart to come and somebody asked me recently in an interview that when you try to transform a large company, if you fail, your career is over. So the way we have to approach every day is there will be mini failures, ups and downs, but one simple philosophy as a leader is never be complacent. Don't try perfection.
Yeah.
You have to be vulnerable and you have to listen. We have 2 ears and mouth. You have to listen and lead with compassion. And some days the chips are down, so shouldn't be broken. And some days the chips are up, you shouldn't be complacent. So you have to really, really navigate this whole transformation a different way. The other thing is it's a combination of skill set and mindset, right? So first thing in this age of AI, Ray, as a leader, you have to first challenge yourself that am I bringing value to this organization? Is it a job or is it a passion? Does my passion meet my purpose? So if I feel that AI can replace me today, then why am I here? So I ask this myself, that what value am I adding? And second of all, am I really driving, the value that I should? There is a job that you are hired for, and there is a job that you want to do. Because as leaders, we are not paid for the work that we do. We are paid for the thought that we bring in, And the second of all, when you go through this entire culture transformation, you cannot make it about your story. It has to be our story and their story. It's not about, so the one thing that I would say is that it's not about replacement. AI is not about replacement. AI is about reimagination. It pushes us to reimagine ourselves to be different. What we were a few years ago and what we are that we are not today. So if we reimagine ourselves every day, empowered by AI, we can be a better company, better leader, better human. That's the biggest fear people have. We think, oh my God, AI will replace ourselves. And what do? Replacement creates fear, but reimagination creates opportunity. And as we go through from LLMs to machine learning to agentic AI, we need to think about reimagining ourselves. The employees who will be for the long term will be the ones who reimagine themselves, utilizing different forms of AI with one purpose of organizational value. And to Vala, your question about the silos, the first thing is data doesn't lie and data doesn't have emotion. If you can approach a conversation with data and really empower people to think on the art of possible, you start bringing silos. So what we did was, instead of streamlining processes on all, we started streamlining, aggregating data, and build a cohesive platform journey. And the more you have journey, you have to really start exciting people. Think, Vala, when you are transforming and breaking silos in a company, when you get tired of explaining your strategy, then people start getting it. If you have to, have everybody believes in your strategy, you don't have a strategy. If I have to put a coin about everybody doubted me that I can do something and I will fail, I'll be a millionaire by now. Every time I put a penny on the table. So you have to be prepared to actually be vulnerable, listen to their pains, and try to connect the dots. When you look at approach leadership, Vala, in this age, there is 3 quotients I always talked about. One is your competency quotient, but the other 2 quotients is EQ and IQ. EQ is how you listen, collaborate in the age of AI. The other is IQ is very important, is connecting the dots. There's a lot of data. How do you ask the questions in a cognitive way to connect the dots is breaks your silos. If you look at X Vantage, the data mesh really helps you to break silos and create a cohesive journey that takes friction out. So global data feeding to intelligent engines create frictionless experience. So that's how we thought about it, to take silos out.
That's great. It's when I listen to Brené Brown talk about you want to build consensus and alignment, you need data with a soul. I feel that when you are building consensus and educating and inspiring, you're not just using data to push an agenda. There's a soulfulness in how you use the data so that people can better understand, have better contextual understanding of what finish could look like.
Yeah.
And again, you're doing some major level innovation where it's not in a matter of days, maybe not even in a matter of weeks, but sometimes it takes, several quarters. And of course, you're decelerating that time cycle, but time to build such a powerful platform like you have. We have a lot of startup founders who watch the show. We have lots of Fortune 1000 executives who watch the show. You're a mentor to many. You're a sponsor to many. I've met some real senior executives who thank you for being their sponsor and mentor. So I know you spend a lot of time coaching, just like, you know, we coach athletes, coaching your teams to become all-stars and Hall of Fame contributors. What advice do you have for some of the leaders watching now who may not be moving as fast as you are, who may not have the grand vision that you have, and who may not have the great team that you have? You're blessed with a really strong team where you can push your imagination as much as you want because you have an all-star team surrounding you. What advice do you have for folks watching who want to become Sanjib?
I think the first thing, Vala, I would say, take out the fear to fail. I think sometimes we are constrained by our own thoughts and we are worried to fail. And when you try and fail is so much more better than never trying at all. Always remember, 40% chance of failure also has 60% chance to success. So it's up to you how you focus on this. The second, I will say, perfection is our biggest enemy towards progress. Either you are a startup or a big company, AI is not perfect. It's never going to be perfect. But what you have to focus on is it more perfect, little more tomorrow than it is today? How you focus on incrementally being a little more perfect. It's very important. That will help you understand, how to move forward. The third thing is you actually have to start with the customer and the value. You have to start with an operational spirit, not a technology spirit. Sometimes the challenge we have is we have this tech, amazing tech, and we have the business and the operations. And 80% transformations fail because you don't link the both. Because the moment you build amazing technology, they don't find adoption. You have amazing business model, you cannot build the technology. And how do we build this gap between? It starts with one simple thing, is your biggest knowledge source is just asking a simple question, why? And today, in the age of Chat GPT or Gen AI, you can ask the why to get the answer. But imagine you have to ask the why. If you wait for Chat GPT to coach you, will not happen. Sometimes we wait for us to be trained and all, but ask the question, be curious, and then take risk in a way that sometimes think big, but act small. Define the new, but explain the next, and challenge. Do not be status quo. And the last advice I'll give you, Vala, which I told before, is sometimes we get too stagnant. So what I do sometimes is on a Friday, I'll fire myself. I feel that I'm not doing great. I need to have a different perspective of me as a leader. On Saturday, I'll be sulking. Oh my God, I need to find a new job. Maybe I'll ping Ray to get me a new job, or you. So what? On Sunday,
That hasn't happened.
On Sunday,
We're having too much fun. Yeah.
On Sunday, I'll come back. You know what? I need to get back to my new job better. And Monday, come back with a different perspective.
Yeah.
I think startup founders or Fortune 1000 executives, if you actually have a new perspective to come to the job and bring in new ideas, get passionate about driving value, not building technology. Don't get defined by the job you have. Try to create the value, do that. And the last thing I'll say is that too many times we wait to get a seat at the table. And I would say, be your own CEO, create your own table, and have slowly increase the table so that others can sit on it. If you wait to be involved, you will miss the boat. Try to create your own value, your own CEO, by looking at the technologies, the business, do that. And you need to really understand the business model, your customers and segment of it. Even if you're technologies, you have to really understand the business. And if you're a business, have enough acumen to understand the why in technology. That's what I would say, my advice to everybody listening to this show.
Incredible. Sanjib, there's a book there. There's a best-selling book there, Sanjib.
I know. That's
awesome.
Sanjib, right? I mean, this is really that the whole form follows function, right? I mean, this is even more true right now, and getting that form right does take time, but getting the function, we can code at the speed of thought now, which really changes everything, especially as we get to AI exponentials. We're here with Sanjib Sahoo, President, Global Platform Group at Ingram Micro. So thank you for your time, Sanjib.
Yeah.
Of course, your friendship.
Thank you, Sanjib.
Thank you.
He is a disruptive thinker, and I enjoy talking to him because he's a technologist, but more of a philosopher, and I think he cares more about the people than the technology, and that's always the right priority. Okay, this is what if you're into baseball, this is the cleanup hitter spot where we bring our last guests and they hit a grand slam and bring everything home. And we're talking to a future best-selling author because his book right now is #1 on Amazon, and it's not even available until October 14th. So he's going to have months of being #1 before it's officially available, but you can order it now, like I have. Tim Christophersen, Vice President Climate Action at Salesforce, a company that I know and love, and the author of a brilliant new book, Generation Restoration. Tim has been supporting global progress for stable climate and abundant biodiversity, the life support system of the planet Earth for quarter of a century, 25 years. His career spans the European Commission, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, and 15 years as diplomat with the United Nations Environmental Program. From the first attempt to unite the world behind a global climate pact in Copenhagen in 2009 to the groundbreaking global biodiversity framework in 2022 and leading the UN decade on ecosystem restoration from 21 to 30, Tim has been at the cutting edge of collective action to save humanity from the words of UN Secretary General, our societal war with nature. With global agreement now in place to guide sustainable development, he joined the private sector in May of 2022 to accelerate the sustainability revolution by inspiring the world's largest corporations to take more and faster action for climate and nature. The founder of our company believes business can be the greatest platform for change, and values create value. So I'm not surprised that a mission-oriented, purpose-driven person like Tim decided to join Salesforce 3 years ago. As Vice President of Climate Action in Salesforce, a world market leader in artificial intelligence and customer relationship management, Tim works with thousands of companies and public sector institutions on sustainability transformation. His new book, again, Generation Restoration, How to Fix Our Relationship Crisis with Mother Nature, is a #1 new release in environmental economics, and the book will be available October 14th of this year, and it can be ordered as we speak. Welcome, Tim, to DisrupTV, and congratulations on an amazing book.
Thank you, Vala, and thank you, Ray. And first of all, thanks so much for having me. I know nature is a bit of an outlier topic for you, so I want to thank you for accommodating me, but that's exactly why I wrote the book, because nature is not really an outlier topic for any of us anymore. Nature is now everybody's business, and that's happening pretty fast as we see nature collapsing, and that will hit every part of the economy. So the book is about turning that around, in essence.
And so much of our supply chain depends on nature. As you've noted in the past, 85, 90%, vast majority of, folks like our last guest who's providing technology to 90% of the population, it needs to be nature's friend. So again, I think Ray and I recognize that. We really appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us.
Yeah, and Tim, I think this is getting even more important, right? We're starting to discover that the world is facing an energy crisis given the demand for AI. And you're seeing that across the board, right? You got China with 1,000 gigawatts of coal-fired plants. You got 700 to 900 megawatt SMRs being built. You got hydro coming onto line. Gas-fired is back. Coal-fired is back. This is going to be quite interesting to see how this ends up, because the world demand for electricity suddenly shot up just as we were trying to actually address energy sources in a different way. And this really touches at the heart of the intersection between technology and the environment. So you call for a new global ecological literacy. What does that mean, especially as these policy decisions are being made?
Yeah, AI does not only use a lot of energy, it also uses a lot of water, and that water comes from forest watersheds, from ecosystems that provide that basic ecosystem service. So the basic ecological literacy we need, if you think about it in terms of the economy, we're all very used to talking about the economy, and the word ecology has the same root. They both come from ancient Greek. Oikos is our common home, our household, and the economy is the management of our common home. Ecology is the knowledge of our common home. And what we're doing at the moment with planet Earth is we're basically flying blind without the knowledge of how things really work, how we can manage our common home in the economy. And that ecological literacy is essential because we're about to make important decisions for many generations to come. And if you have ecological literacy, you can be pretty smart about rebuilding nature's abundance and rebuilding a nation's what we call natural capital. So how much clean water do you have? How much forest do you have?
Yep.
How much fish do you have in the ocean? But if you're not smart about it, you don't have ecological literacy, you can pretty fast run down your country's natural capital. And we see that happening in many countries around the world. Fortunately, there's a global awakening. There's a wake-up call for ecological literacy that's already happening.
Tell us about generation restoration. Tell us about the title. Tell us about what the book is about. And at what point, given your, pretty important job you have as, head of climate action at Salesforce, what motivated you to write the book?
So it doesn't matter if you're a boomer or Gen X like me or Gen Z or Gen A, we're all generation restoration. It's basically a task for everybody alive today to rebuild a relationship with nature. And in the book, I go into a little bit the philosophical underpinnings of where this notion comes from that we are not part of nature, because that seems to be a pretty widespread notion that humans are somehow apart from nature and not a part of nature. So this basically comes from the philosophy of enlightenment. So you have to go back 300 years and look at the reductionist thinking of Descartes and philosophers of the 16th and 17th century that basically saw only humans as divine beings and everything else as an intricate machine. Now, the problem with that view is that if you see nature as a machine that just runs forever for free and for all of us, it's not how nature works. Nature needs investments and it needs a reciprocity in the relationship with how we depend upon and draw upon nature. So that's the mind shift we are starting to see now. There's a lot of young people, but generation restoration is not only about young people. I'm not young myself, as you can see, but young at heart. So it's everybody is part of this, whether you're young or old. Jane Goodall wrote the foreword for the book, and she's 91 and going very strong. She's phenomenal, as you know. So very grateful for Jane for writing the foreward.
She's definitely a force of nature.
Purpose keeps you young, that's for sure.
Yes, compared to her, we're all young. But the real question is like, how do you keep that force of nature going? But there is a good point here, right? This disconnect between humans feeling they're part of nature, and of course, given our exposure to where we are. I remember standing in the middle of London, and someone was like, "The forests are all disappearing," and I was like, "Just go 10 miles west of London, and you'll be fine. There's stuff out there to preserve. There's things to take a look at." But when we're part of this large scale ecosystems, right? The question is really, where does it work? How do we get restoration in place? Has it worked before in the past? Is there a place that we should be starting? Where do you see that happen?
History is full of examples of ecosystem restoration at large scale. One of my favorite examples is this bit over 2,000 years ago now, when in ancient Greece, they had almost a century of ecology based on Plato and Aristotle's philosophy. Yep. That turned around the loss of Greek naval power, which all depended on large trees. It ran out of trees. There was no trees anymore anywhere around Athens. And they turned it around. But it took a concerted effort. I think we can easily do that today because we have AI, we have the knowledge. One of my favorite uses of AI, by the way, is to use it to generate images of landscapes, how they are fully restored and fully functional as a landscape that works with humans, where humans and nature live in harmony. But for that, you need imagination, and AI can generate the visuals for these landscapes. Because if you're not an ecologist and you walk through a landscape, one of my favorite ones is in the Eastern Cape of Southern Africa. It looks beautiful to people who think they're on a safari there, brown savanna landscapes, a tree here and there. But 200 years ago, it was a densely forested, what is called a subtropical thicket. It was the best big five habitat in the world, the best black rhino habitat in the world. But then merino sheep came and overgrazed the whole place. And now there's a million hectares. There's over 2.5 million acres of degraded landscapes that are waiting to be restored. But if you don't know what it looked like, you're not going to have the political will or the imagination to start that restoration at scale. That's what I'm trying to change with the book, because we have the power and the technology and the tools and even the money to turn those places around into the richness and abundance that we once had. Because nature has a mindset of abundance. We've gotten used to this mindset of it's all going downhill with biodiversity, as you said, Ray. But in fact, nature has a mindset of abundance and diversity. And as soon as we flip the switch and create more diversity, abundance comes back, sometimes pretty quickly. So there are great examples of large-scale restoration areas in the world. In the book, I describe one in the high Andes, the above 13,000 feet, above 4,000 meters in the high Andes. There's a movement of now 30,000 local communities, indigenous peoples who are replanting the original forest cover of the high Andes, which capture the water from the clouds. They feed all of Latin America with drinking water, cities like Lima. And now that the glaciers are disappearing, rebuilding those forests is essential, because otherwise people are going to run out of water. So those kinds of movements that are happening at a continental scale are encouraging. People are really waking up to this.
Let's talk about Action Andina. Let's talk about Action Andina. How did it get started? I think that's what you're referring to, right?
It only started about 5 years ago, which is amazing.
Yeah.
See how far they've come, and now reaching over 10 million trees planted. And what it builds on is this culture of reciprocity with nature. There's two Incan principles that are tapped into to generate that enthusiasm in the communities to give back, not only to their communities, but to give back to nature and build a relationship with nature that is mutually supportive. So that empowers this movement to grow so fast and so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's a specialized tree, if I remember, like a caunia that you have
You're
to build.
an expert. It's the polylepis
I'm not an
tree,
expert, but it's a specialized tree that they had built to retain the water, which is part of the problem. So, but that required a lot of leadership to get there, right? And there's the economic impact. There's a leadership. There's a lot of stakeholders that were involved in that process. So. And
they won the Earthshot Prize, Prince William's initiative to highlight these kinds of examples. What I find encouraging is that level of a relationship with nature that goes deeper, goes into a sense of place and a sense of belonging. You find that everywhere around the world.
Well, the ancient cultures had a tie back. The ancient cultures all had a tie back to nature. And you're right. The modern culture doesn't have that. Maybe we build AI systems that tie back. What's the tie?
I think AI can help us get there with the imagination that we need, but maybe with also freeing up some time from mundane tasks that we can then use to spend in nature. It's
just even in fire prevention, flood prevention, water planning, right? You've got all those.
We work with a company in Salesforce, for example, called Pano AI. They do ultra early wildfire detection. So they use both predictive and generative AI for training and for detection of wildfires. And there's a lot of other examples where AI can help. One of my favorites is a recent one for the ocean. We work with the Ocean Risk and Resilience Action Alliance, AURA, to build what they call the Octopus platform. So we match basically where are great ocean projects, blue carbon or restoration of coral reefs, and where are investors that want to invest there. And we help making those matches easier and more seamless, do basic due diligence with AI. And that is one of many use cases. There's a world of opportunity to use AI for nature and climate action.
Sonia and Arvind at Pano have done a good job with observability techniques that are being used for environment. So that's definitely. Sorry, Vala, go ahead. Sorry about that.
No, I just think as I listen to you and I see in your book, all the use cases, specific use cases that you provide will inspire people into action. Because sometimes, when you see, the statistics around and the size and scope of the challenge we're facing, you ask yourself, can I as an individual, or can my family, or can my community do something to make a difference? And you, throughout your book, and just in the 10 minutes you've been talking to us, case after case after case. In fact, you started the call by saying, I'm dialing in from my family farm in Denmark. So I suspect, you've learned a lot from your own regenerative farm about restoring nature. Can you share some personal examples of actually living your advice every day on your family?
Yeah, that is a much smaller scale than Axio Andina, but we bought this farm about 5 years ago. It's about 90 acres, 35 hectares.
That's not a small farm. That's not a small farm. So
it used to be a dairy farm, and we're turning that into an agroforestry permaculture. So we're planting a lot of fruit and nut trees, and then using sheep for what is called high intensity short rotation grazing, which restores biodiversity into the soil, draws carbon into the soil, makes it more porous for water. What we've learned is, first of all, my respect for anybody who produces our food has grown exponentially. Farming is hard and it's complicated. And my deepest gratitude to anybody who produces food for any of us.
Amen. Amen.
And the other thing we've learned is nature basically works like a flywheel. You know, when you have critical mass in a flywheel, it becomes self-stabilizing. So ecosystems are fascinating in that way. You have to add diversity, and then the flywheel turns faster. It self-stabilizes. It creates more surplus, more abundance.
Wow.
And the more diversity you add, the more abundance you have. Unfortunately, modern, or you say industrial agriculture, works exactly the other way. It simplifies, it focuses on monocultures, and you slow down that flywheel. And if you do that too much, you basically lose the soil biodiversity. There's about 1 trillion workers on our farm. They're all underground, you know, microbes and nematodes and bacteria. They do the real work. If you lose that, it's very difficult to replace. But fortunately, I think we're just in time globally. There's a mind shift towards regenerative agriculture happening, where we're focusing more on biology as the driver of agriculture rather than chemistry and physics as we did last century. And that mind shift is happening just in time. It's not happening fast enough because there's a lot of government subsidies, for example, stacked the other way, but things are changing for the better.
You know, just getting the fauna right is half the battle. And that's where you're going to see some of the new advancements in terms of being able to get that diversity and the right.
Yeah, there's microphones now with AI that can detect soil biodiversity by their sound. You know, there's a soil acoustic detectors. So there's amazing monitoring technology that's coming out.
Yeah,
Did you learn something completely new in the process of writing the book? I mean, you've been in this space as an advocate, as a champion for 25 years. But when you had to write long form and truly reflect and deepen your research, any ideas, any concepts, anything that may be orthogonal to what you thought was the right approach before starting to write the book? Any aha moments while you were writing the book?
Yeah, I think it's about the real big questions, because when I came out of university, I was also of the reductionist mindset. I saw nature as a commodity and, you know, there for our taking. And this shift in mindset that we are not only part of nature, but nature is always part of us, and that we have to reestablish that healthy relationship. That has really surprised me, how ready people are for that shift, because I've spoken to many people for this book, and there's hundreds of people who've inspired me with their stories. I think there's a real collective mind shift happening. And again, we're the first generation ever who can talk about these issues in real time across the globe.
Right.
So imagine what kind of opportunities we have to make these changes and shifts quickly. And this is not about political orientation, or it's about a world of abundance that we once had and that we can have again, because nature is bending towards abundance and diversity. We just have to give nature a little nudge.
Christoph, what are some things like the average individual can do?
So I get asked that a lot, to be honest, and usually I would sort of list a lot of things that you can do, like roof gardening, and you do beekeeping, and but I think the most important thing to do is to view nature differently. You know, most of us live in cities, and you think nature is pretty far away, but it might surprise you that you don't even have to leave your house to be in touch with nature, because we are walking ecosystems as people.
Yep.
There's a the human microbiome project has shown, there's millions of different species, trillions of cells that we carry around with us of a couple of pounds of different, species. We are a walking.
Some more than others,
we are
but
nature. So thinking how we are part of nature and how we need these bacteria in our gut to digest our food, we can't exist without them. We have that relationship, even if we live in a city, and even if you only see nature in a park, you can't really get away from that relationship with nature. So seeing nature differently, spend more time in nature, go out to your favorite park, listen to the birds, learn where your food comes from. Where does your water come from? Who are the farmers who are regenerating the soil, perhaps, or not? So these kinds of things, I think, are the biggest change, because then other things will happen from that. Once you have a different mindset, there's a saying, if you want to change small things, change what you do. If you want to change big things, change how you see things. And I think that's the point we're at right now.
No, hey, thank you so much. That HMP example is great, because anything from your gut health is similar to what you're doing around the nature around you. So thanks for being here. We're Tim Christophersen, Vice President of Climate Action at Salesforce, author of the #1 seller in the green section, in the eco section of Amazon, called Generation Restoration, and a board member. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Congratulations, Tim. Way to go. Awesome.
Get the book now. It's available October 14th. So there you go.
Proud to have people like Tim at my company. People who are courageous enough to have a 90-acre farm, and I suspect lots of what he consumes comes from his amazing family farm. So to live, your thoughts and your principles and your call to action, and to write a best-selling book about it is great.
Not easy. Definitely not easy. But hey, this has been a crazy week, man. If you think about what's happening in terms of like all the shifts that are going on, we got tech earnings that came in. It was pretty amazing. We saw what happened with the tech earnings. Everybody did well. Forecasts are great. People are, there's a lot of buoyancy in the marketplace there. We've also been spending a lot of time talking about this world of AI exponentials. These are some interesting companies. They're AI natives. They're not getting 30% improvement, 40%. We're talking 1,000x, right? I mean, this is crazy. It's from 10x to 100x to 1,000x. And we've been like studying these companies, trying to figure out what's going on. And then, of course, right, I mean, we're in the middle of summer. So some people are coming back to school. So new changes afoot. We got an exciting fall ahead. And you got a new book coming out. So, what? Tell us a little bit. We'll interview you later for the book. I know it's coming up, but tell us more. What's up? So,
well, summer's going by fast, and I look at my September and October schedule, and I'm traveling every week, all of September. Well, talking to you about it, I know it doesn't mean anything, because that's
I'm home for the next 3 weeks. I'm really looking forward to it.
But September and October, I'm bouncing around the globe, mostly Europe and US, but every week. So I'm trying to enjoy the few weeks left before I'm on. And on one stretch, I think I'm on the road for 12 days in a row. So right now I'm thinking about where I need to do my dry cleaning as I'm bouncing from place to place. October, Autonomous comes out. It's a work of 2 years of research since Boundless. I realized when I wrote Boundless, it was boundless in terms of human reaching full potential, and that balance of performance and stability has changed with agentic AI, and now you can actually design for inherent instability using AI and focus your energy, time for creativity and performance. So it was a realization that the healthiest companies of the future are going to be autonomous companies, and autonomous companies embrace digital labor, and digital labor is about agentic and physical AI. So it's just working backwards to the wave 3, wave 4 of AI, and just recognizing that the only path to nonlinear optionality is when you become autonomous. And the easiest analogy is an autonomous vehicle. You and I are Tesla owners.
Yep.
There are 6 levels of autonomy defined by consortiums that govern autonomous vehicles. In level 5, it's 0 to 5. Level 5 is full autonomy. Level 0 to 4 are assistive in nature. Auto park, you still have to have your hands on the wheel. But when you get to level 6, there is no steering wheel. There is no brake pedal, gas pedal. There is no mirror. There is no back rear window. So when it comes to optionality, all the levels are assistive, so they're linear in nature. But when you get into a fully autonomous vehicle, like what's happening in San Francisco and Austin and many of the cities throughout the US, not just with Tesla, but also with Waymo and Zoox from Amazon. And it's funny, it's the tech companies that are disrupting the auto industry, not the automakers themselves, which is kind of a delicious paradox. But when you get into an autonomous vehicle, you can take a nap, you can watch DisrupTV, you can watch Netflix, you can be on your Salesforce CRM dashboards. The options you have is now non-linear. You have infinite things you could do versus just one job, driving the car. And as companies deploy digital labor, they realize they have so much more optionality in terms of how they use their human labor force and what projects that they were hoping to get to but never could because they didn't have the scale and the ability to reason and take action in a trustworthy way. My company is getting close to saving $100 million in savings since April of this month.
Wow.
And that's through restructuring, realignment of resources because of the level of optionality that's been afforded to us with agentic AI, and it's just the beginning. So anyway, autonomous is about, you had coined the term digital Darwinism, and Darwinism was survival of the fittest, and it wasn't about the strongest, it was about the most adaptable. Yep. So if the animal had thick fur, the animal could survive winter. So it wasn't necessarily the strongest, but the most adaptable.
Adaptive, yep.
And now we're talking digital Darwinism. How do you adapt? How do you adapt in a world where scale, intelligence, and speed is at levels we've never witnessed in humanity? How do you compete against an autonomous company? My thesis is you can't.
So you have to build one. You have to build another one. Right.
Every company is going to be disrupted by an autonomous version of itself. So, and that's what the book is about. There's 10 tenets of what it means to be an autonomous business, and I won't call them the Afshar law, but there are some prerequisites in terms of successfully going on this journey. And thankfully, I work for a company that has given me some evidence I can reference.
Well, hey, this is great. You and your co-author, Henry King, back at it again. It's going to be awesome. We'll talk more about that in a future episode to be determined.
Hopefully before the book is available in October. But
I think so.
I know it's so hard to be a guest on this show, so I have no expectation.
We're booked out to November, I heard, but I think we're going to try to squeeze you in. No, just kidding.
I can't even get on my own show. It's crazy. That's crazy. That's a good thing, by the way. It means we're popular. Speaking of popular shows and what we're putting together for next
407.
week.
Look at that.
Yes, Diego Di Costa, CEO of DataGrid, will join us.
Nice. Look at that.
Bill Zuski, founder CEO of Good Life and author of What's Your Life Score? The playbook for designing your best life.
Yes.
I'd love to get my score. I'm hoping I could be cum laude, summa cum laude. Dr. Janai Duane, leading behavior scientist at Brown Faculty, MIT Research Fellow, and co-author of Super Shifts, Transforming How We Live, Learn, and Work in Age of Intelligence, and Dr. Janai's co-author, Steve Fisher, world-renowned futurist, entrepreneur, podcaster, and co-author of, again, Super Shifts, Transforming How We Live, Learn, and Work in the Age of Intelligence. Last 2 years, we've averaged 70 authors on DisrupTV. We're sure to meet that number, maybe even break that number, given the fact that every episode so far this year, we've had at least 1 or 2 authors. So we're doing well in terms of making sure that folks who are courageous enough to write long form their thoughts and beliefs and accomplishments can come on this show and share their wisdom with our incredibly generous, thoughtful audience. So if you have authors and favorite books and you want us to feature the authors, please let Elle, Ray, and we're all available on LinkedIn and X. Reach out to us, and of course, at DisrupTV Show, and recommend your favorite author. And as long as it's in the realm of business, leadership, climate, innovation, technology, entrepreneurship, I'm not sure if there's a category we'll disqualify, but if you think it's disruptive, important, meaningful work, please make a recommendation. We'll do our best to get them on the show. Ray, your closing thoughts.
I think it's really important. We're seeing this shift to AI. You see companies that went through the digital shift. That's the first part, digitization. As you heard from Sanjib Sahoo, that digitization gives you the capability to then get to AI and AI strategy. And as we think about AI, we have to think about the fact that we're humans in a larger environment. And that ecosystem is going to change. We'll be seeing the implications of AI on the environment, but we'll also be using AI to improve the environment. And so both things can be true at the same time. But that is really some of the big shifts we're going to see. And if it's Friday, it's DisrupTV. So catch us every 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, every Friday or most Fridays for this. And of course, listen to us on Apple Podcast, YouTube. And of course, you can catch everything on DisrupTV. Just search for DisrupTV on your favorite podcast site. Thanks a lot.
See you everyone.